Isekai'd was an OP but lonely demon lord, who reincarnated himself to find a girlfriend. However, after meeting an elf baddie who looks like the girl he couldn't save in his past life, he does everything to protect her as she slowly falls in love with him. After reincarnating, Isekai'd leads a quiet life with his average parents. His parents ask him about his future plans, and that question sparks memories of his true desire to build real connections with people. Isekai'd takes it upon himself to be proactive and heads into town to rizz up some potential baby mamas. He tries to greet them, but they scream and flee, so he chases after them and offers his friendship, but they're already long gone, and it leaves him realizing that he has no rizz. Then, he spends the rest of his afternoon taking his frustrations out on the local ecosystem. That evening, Mayor Weiss drops by and tells Isekai'd the ultimate recipe for making friends is to speak gently and use polite pickup lines. Isekai'd bolts from the house, determined to test the strategy. He then scouts the town, trying his new lines on every stranger he encounters, but every attempt ends in rejection. Later in the forest, Isekai'd hears a girl's voice echoing through the woods and heads toward it. There, he finds a girl locked in battle with a large wolf, using powerful magic to defend herself, but he thinks the beast is pathetically weak. Once the girl defeats the wolf, Isekai'd subconsciously calls her Lydia, which she quickly corrects, saying that her name is Irina. Trying to get closer, he offers to help her grow stronger, but she tells him to stay away and runs off, destroying Isekai'd's self-esteem. Moments later, as Weiss leaves the house, he finds his daughter Irina crying and running towards him, and when Isekai'd sees that Weiss is her father, he believes that it's fate. In the following weeks, Isekai'd relentlessly pursues Irina around town, insisting on friendship while he looks like a total creep. On her birthday, he switches up his tactics and brings her flowers, but she blasts him with fire. A few days later, he spots her fighting wild creatures and offers to escort her home, but she ignores him. Growing desperate, that night, Isekai'd goes over all his rizzing strategies from the University of Nick Cannon and starts crafting a new plan. But before he can finish, a scream tears through the night. Outside, goblins swarm into town, and Isekai'd steps out, ready to display his power, but before he can act, his dad charges in and wipes out the goblins effortlessly. Moments later, Weiss arrives in a panic and informs Isekai'd's father, Jack, that Irina is still in the woods. Remembering how he was the one who drove her away, Isekai'd swears to bring her back safely and takes off. Meanwhile, Irina stands frozen in fear, surrounded by goblins. Haunted by the cruelty of her bullies and the pain they caused, she gives up and tells the monsters to finish her. But just as they charge, Isekai'd unleashes a barrier of magic that obliterates them. The goblin leader stares in disbelief, and Isekai'd tells Irina that he's there to save her. Irina begs Isekai'd to run away and save himself, but to recover more of his aura, he incinerates the goblins with lightning. The leader continues to talk trash, so Isekai'd gives him a final chance to leave in peace. He refuses, and seconds later, he's vaporized like the rest. Then, Isekai'd offers Irina his hand, and she asks why he saved her. He answers plainly that it's because they're friends. She doesn't believe he could possibly understand the pain of her isolation, and he recalls his own story about his past life, when he had an old elf friend, Lydia, and how he vowed to never betray her. Hesitantly, Irina lays out all her fears and insecurities. Isekai'd listens, then tells her that none of it matters, and promises to stand by her side regardless. And for the first time, she accepts his friendship, and they promise to be together in the name of the demon lord himself. Years later, she shows up in his room to greet him, and lies in his bed. Flustered, he tells her that a girl like her shouldn't be acting like this, and with a sly grin, she suggests they enroll in the Magic Academy together. The next day, they join the Magic Academy, and Headmaster Gold greets the duo, saying it's a pleasure to finally meet the children of the town's greatest heroes. Irina is honored to be called the daughter of a hero, while Isekai'd is confused, wondering how his mode's parents could possibly be heroic figures. But thanks to their goblin-slaying antics in the forest, Gold says they're already locally famous, and as a result, they only need to take the written exam. When the results are posted, Irina ranks first in the class, but Isekai'd's name is nowhere to be found. While he silently spirals into panic, Irina manages to spot his name, and it reveals that he passes, despite scoring 0 on everything.
Hey yo, what the?
As Isekai'd reels from the confusion, Gold appears to personally congratulate him, and explains that his 0 isn't a failure at all, but that his answers are too ancient and advanced, rooted in magic knowledge long lost to time, which stems from his past as the Demon Lord. The headmaster also shares with the class that Isekai'd's father once helped defeat a resurrected evil god, alongside his mother. Later in the hallway, Irina tries to talk things over with Ard, but he's still trying to make sense of how his broke-bum parents are secretly legendary warriors. But when he looks at Irina, he's just happy that Irina is with him. But the moment they step into class, every popular girl in the room swarms him, while the simps try to hit on Irina. As he basks in the attention, he hears someone's insults from the sidelines and turns to investigate. He spots an elf named Spencer verbally tearing into a succubus girl named Ginny, accusing her of using her succubus charms to drain the headmaster dry. When Irina tells him to stop, he declares that Ginny's family serves his, and that gives him the right to treat her however he wants. Ard steps in and tells Spencer to apologize, but the elf just scoffs and says he'll only do so if Ard can defeat him in a duel. Before Ard can accept, Irina intervenes and warns him that she senses that Spencer is incredibly powerful. Spencer doubles down, insulting them both, saying neither would last a minute in a fight. Then a stunning woman walks in, radiating power. Ard doesn't need to look, as he feels the aura immediately, and one glance confirms it that it's Olivia, one of his most loyal generals back in his days as Demon Lord Varvatos. Panic sets in, and that if she recognizes him, she'll know he abandoned the throne to live a quiet high school life. However, she seems more interested in the duel than in Ard's identity, and she grants permission for the match, saying it'll be a good way to gauge their strength. Then, outside the school, they get ready for the duel, and Spencer's lackeys mock Ard while Irina watches nervously from the sidelines. Spencer casts a lightning spell that engulfs Ard in smoke and fire, but when the dust clears, Ard stands there unharmed, and Spencer gives him some reluctant respect. Ard asks if that was just a warm-up, which annoys Spencer enough to unleash what he calls a mega flare. Ard blocks it again, unfazed. As the class gasps, Ard corrects them that Spencer isn't using a mega flare, but it's just a weak and puny flare, the same size as his elf willy. Spencer, now flustered, begins launching multiple fire spells at once, calling it a giga flare. But Ard blocks them with ease and puts out the flames in a heartbeat, pointing out that it's just a dramatic effect created by layering simple flares. Then Ard decides to demonstrate what a real giga flare is. He conjures a blazing tornado that surrounds Spencer and slowly cooks him until he begs for mercy, promising that he will apologize. Ard stops, leaving Spencer shocked that he's still alive. With a chilling calm, Ard tells him that what he calls a giga flare is so weak, it's an insult to the spell's creator. Irina, impressed and excited, clings to his arm. Ginny follows suit, and Olivia approaches, curious about the second spell Ard used while using the giga flare. She suspects something, and Ard explains that he layered a protective barrier on Spencer while using the giga flare, just to keep him from becoming actual barbecue. The students are amazed. He casually claims double casting is no big deal, but Olivia gets closer and tells him that double casting is a long-lost skill. He dodges her questioning, and she backs off, warning him that she'll get answers eventually. Later, the students gather outside a dungeon for their first field class. Olivia instructs them to form groups, and the entire class starts begging to team up with Ard. Instead, he notices Ginny standing off to the side and suggests to Irina to invite her to join, and they form a trio. Inside, Olivia lays out the mission that they need to defeat a B-rank black wolf. Some students begin to panic with how difficult the mission is, but Olivia knows it's easy for Ard and tries to gauge Ard's reaction, but he avoids answering and leads the girls inside. Soon enough, they encounter a pack of black wolves. Ginny nearly collapses in fear, so Ard and Irina step up and roast the beasts until nothing but ash remains. While Ard is trying to harvest the wolves' hides, he overhears Ginny doubting her place in the group, calling her own skills useless. He offers to help her train, saying that it will help her confidence, and it takes Irina to convince her as a friend that Ginny agrees to do it. They start with the flame blasting technique he just used, but Ginny barely produces a spark. Frustrated, she starts to lose hope, and Ard remembers hearing about her troubled upbringing full of horrible men and realizes she's probably dealing with deep-seated self-doubt. He simplifies the lesson and lowers the intensity. After spotting another black wolf, he shows her how to use a skill he created on the fly, magic rings that blow up the wolf. Ginny and Irina are stunned. He breaks it down in simple terms, and Ginny manages to replicate it. Overjoyed, she squeezes his arm gratefully, pressing against him. Irina jumps in too, but they accidentally trigger a trap and fall through the floor. They land on the dungeon's final level, and the final boss, a massive minotaur, crashes through a wall. Ginny is paralyzed by fear, but Irina vows to protect her. Meanwhile, Ard decides it's another chance to teach, and the Minotaur swings its massive club, and Ard stops it with a finger before he eats it away with a punch like he's some kind of bald-headed MC. As the monster crashes back down, Ard tells the girls to watch closely and learn. He starts by summoning one magic ring, then spam hundreds of them, blasting the boss repeatedly until it's barely able to stand. He calls on Ginny to finish it, and she hesitates, trembling, but Ard reminds her of the emotional pain she's endured. That gives her the push she needs, and she unleashes a flurry of blasts and takes the monster down. Ard and Irina cheer her on as they regroup with the class. Back with the others, Ginny nearly exposes Ard's unique self-invented magic to Olivia, but Ard quickly brushes it off. Spencer and his crew start yapping again, suggesting Ard is only nice to Ginny because of her body. Furious, Ginny storms over and smacks Spencer into a tree. Irina follows up by dumping black wolf ashes all over him. As Spencer scrambles away in humiliation, the girls laugh, and Ard finally feels at peace, until Olivia suddenly appears behind him, grabs his shoulder, and tells him they need to talk. The following day, Gold informs Ard about a student battle event being organized to impress the visiting queen and urges him to participate. Ard politely refuses, uninterested in the offer. However, Gold insists, emphasizing that the event could help secure more funding for the academy. Ard begins explaining his reason to reject his request, but Olivia cuts in, lifting his chin with her hand and commenting that his logic reminds her of someone she used to know, practically telling him that she knows that TJ Demon Lord reincarnates into someone else, and she's suspicious that it's Ard. He asks Gold for a bit of time to think it over, and as they leave, Olivia reminds him of her vow to uncover his true identity. Lost in thought over Gold's offer, Ard strolls away, until Ginny bursts onto the scene, jogging toward him, her jiggle physics in full force every time she takes a step. Knowing he doesn't have any scheduled classes, she eagerly invites him on a date. Ard immediately starts devising a gentle way to say no, but cute and hopeful face clouds his thought process and he agrees to go on a date with her. They start talking about what to do on the date when Irina suddenly jumps in, declaring that she wants to go too. To Ard's surprise, Ginny welcomes her enthusiastically, saying she'd love for Irina to join, as after all, Ard is supposed to have a harem, and she's committed to helping him build it. Irina, confused, turns to Ard and asks what a harem even is. Ard pretends not to know, but Ginny gives her an explanation that nearly breaks Irina's brain, and she refuses to let Ard have more than one baby mama. Later that day, Ard meets up with the girls at the chosen date spot, with Ginny looking like a complete snack. And after complimenting both their outfits, they head into a theater to catch a play, which, to Ard's horror, turns out to be a dramatization of his past life as Varvatos. He starts to zone out from boredom, but Ginny snuggles up and presses her plots against him, and Ard realizes that her inner succubus starts to come out in this situation. When Irina's own assets come into view, it makes him harder to control his slim gym, but he manages to keep himself together. Then, the play portrays his old friend, Lydia, as a pure-hearted beauty, and he suddenly recalls a battle, where Lydia proved the exact opposite, charging in like she was the female embodiment of Cocaine Bear instead of Cinderella. Once the play ends, Ginny keeps clinging to him, whispering her thanks for coming, while Irina gets jealous and tries to peel him away in search of food. Then, Ard covers Irina's eyes as they pass through creamy places while Ginny guides them to a scenic location. But as they're passing an alleyway, Ard overhears a group of cloaked strangers whispering about a scheme aimed at attacking the queen. He quickly informs the girls that he plans to follow the suspicious group and apologizes for cutting the date short. They insist on going with him, both wanting to help the queen, so he half-heartedly agrees and vows to keep them safe. Then, they follow the group, and they discover a magical circle drawn on a sewer wall. Ard instantly senses danger, but the cloaked figures appears behind them, and the leader smugly reveals that the whole setup was a trap meant to isolate them. Unfazed, Ard laughs, saying he had already figured out their plan, and if they wanted to ambush him, they would have used the magic circle the moment he stepped into the sewer. Enraged, the leader activates the circle, engulfing Ard in flames. But Ard simply smiles inside the fire, which scares off the attackers. He then extinguishes the flames, destroys the circle with a blast skill, and then electrocutes all the enemies except for the leader. He offers the man one chance to explain their motive for trying to abduct him and the girls. Instead of talking, the leader transforms into his true form, a demon, and escapes by blasting a hole through the ceiling. Ard tells the girls that he will pursue the demon, and while the girls are confused with how he will do that, he smiley flies off and reminds Irina that he can fly. Then, he spots the demon and starts his counterattack. The demon tries to shield himself by grabbing a nearby girl from the crowd, causing panic among the villagers. With no other choice, Isekai'd calmly addresses the crowd, revealing his heritage as the son of a great mage and promising their safety. The demon brags about the hostage, but Isekai'd reveals she's already safe with her mother thanks to his illusion magic. The demon panics, tries to blast Isekai'd, and takes off. But Isekai'd unleashes a devastating skill, reducing the demon to nothing, defeating it. When Isekai'd lands on the ground, the grateful villagers shower him with praise and even toss him into the air just as the girls climb out of the sewer. The following day, the trio is summoned before Queen Rosie. Isekai'd can't stop staring at her impressive assets, and her advisor tries to scold him for it. But Rosie brushes it off, saying she doesn't mind admiration. Irina then shocks everyone by leisurely asking the queen how she's doing. The entire room falls silent out of confusion, and Irina explains that they're childhood friends, and Rosie confirms it. She then informs them that she is there to reward them, and Isekai'd braces himself for a typical royal gesture, like a medal or some gold. But Rosie stuns everyone by saying she wants to have his baby gravy to have his children, nearly giving him a heart attack. Chaos erupts as the girls and officials protest against her desire, so Rosie has no choice but to postpone clapping Isekai'd, and instead appoints Isekai'd as a Pentagon class mage. The others are still unhappy, so Isekai'd proposes increasing the academy's funding instead, and Rosie agrees, but keeps his promotion as well. Still facing the protests, she promotes Irina as well and assigns both of them as her secret forces. When Irina asks if Ginny will receive anything, Rosie dubs her a triangle class mage. Meanwhile, Isekai'd silently wonders how things spiraled out of control so quickly. But far away, a new group of cloaked demons begins discussing their next move, and this time involving a mysterious woman they claim is strong enough to handle Isekai'd's powers. Several days later, a girl from the academy makes a bold move and confesses her feelings to Isekai'd and asks him out. Unfazed, Isekai'd bluntly places her in the friend zone with a stone-cold expression, hoping that would be enough to stop her and all the other girls wanting him. But she drops the act, boldly claiming she's been fantasizing about his golden glizzy and how she wants to gobble it. She nearly jumps him on the spot until she notices Irina watching, seething with rage. Choosing survival over seduction, the girl backs off for now. Isekai'd approaches Irina to thank her for the timely intervention, but she walks away, clearly feeling jealous and upset. Meanwhile, in Gold's office, a fellow teacher, Jessica, talks with Gold about how Isekai'd has got their academy more budget. But Gold tells her how he actually wants to promote Isekai'd to become an instructor. But because the nobles aren't exactly thrilled by the idea, Gold believes that showcasing his skills during the upcoming battle event would convince them. However, Jessica claims to have just the right plan in mind to make that happen. That night, Isekai'd lies awake in bed, replaying the day's events and wondering what he did that upset Irina. Just then, Ginny pops up and steps in confidently. As she enters, she strips off her plot armors, revealing a provocative set of clothing underneath. She twirls playfully and asks his opinion, but being the ultimate Chad, Isekai'd suggests she dress warmer to avoid catching a cold. Stunned by his obliviousness, Ginny climbs onto the bed and hints at getting freaky with him. But Isekai'd, clueless as ever, is baffled by her intentions. She locks eyes with him and remarks that his body clearly craves hers. That's when Isekai'd notices that her gaze has shifted, and she's activated her seductive evil eye, freezing him in place with its power. Taking advantage, she gently pushes him onto his back, leaning in just as their lips are about to meet, until Irina bursts through the door. The sight sends Irina into a frenzy. She starts hurling objects at Isekai'd, unleashing a torrent of insults and Diddy-like accusations. When she finally cools down, Ginny taunts her, comparing her tantrum to a child's fit over a missing toy. Ginny asks why Irina came by in the first place, and she sheepishly admits that she'd wanted to patch things up with Isekai'd. Ginny then questions the seductive outfit, forcing Irina to confess that Isekai'd's mother told her that dressing like this would make boys like Isekai'd start barking. Ginny finds it hilarious, while Irina mistakes her laughter for mockery. Ginny reassures her that she simply finds Irina's naivety charming. Enraged, Irina claims her jealous behavior is entirely Ginny's fault, accusing her of constantly flirting with Isekai'd and encouraging other girls to confess to him. Ginny scoffs, telling her not to blame others for her own inability to keep Isekai'd's attention, and dismisses her words as nothing more than envy. That pushes Irina over the edge, and she challenges Ginny to a duel, which Ginny accepts. As the argument escalates, Isekai'd, fed up with the noise, orders both of them to sit on the floor. Embarrassed, the girls comply, and he demands them both to apologize to each other, and though reluctant, they mumble them out. But just as tensions ease, the door flies open again, and this time, Jessica enters. She proposes a solution that they settle their rivalry by competing in the upcoming battle event. She explains it's a great opportunity and could help solidify Isekai'd's promotion from student to instructor. Confused, the girls ask for clarification, and Jessica elaborates that since both of them have been trained by Isekai'd, their success in the tournament would prove his capability as a mentor. Irina recalls Isekai'd's advice not to misuse their power, but to use it for good. Isekai'd praises her thoughtfulness, but Jessica interjects, teasing them with the idea of Isekai'd wearing the new teacher uniform. Wanting to see that, the girls enthusiastically agree to participate. The day of the tournament arrives, and the arena fills with an excited crowd. Isekai'd's parents, along with Irina's father, Weiss, serve as commentators. While Weiss offers thoughtful analysis, Jack grumbles about the lack of muscular, brawler-type fighters, wishing for something more intense. Meanwhile, Carla ogles the female contestants, making freaky remarks that leave Isekai'd seated next to Olivia, ashamed by his family's antics. As the first match concludes, Irina is called up. Isekai'd contemplates whether he should wish her success, but since he has no desire to be a teacher, he half-heartedly hopes she loses without injury.
Perfect.
Her opponent wastes no time launching a fire spell, catching Irina off guard. She barely dodges, collapsing to the ground. Looking up, she spots Isekai'd in the stands, praying for her downfall. Mistaking it as support, her confidence is renewed, and with a burst of determination, she unleashes script magic and defeats her opponent. Backstage, Irina passes Ginny on her way to the arena and wishes her a quick good luck. Then, one by one, they both advance through the competition, eventually facing each other in the final round. Just as they prepare to battle, chaos erupts. Hooded figures scattered around the arena suddenly transform into monstrous demons, sparking panic and sending the crowd fleeing in terror. As the arena descends into mayhem, Jessica rushes over to Isekai'd and Olivia, suggesting they split up to take down the demons. Isekai'd's parents and Weiss insist on helping. Meanwhile, Irina and Ginny leap into action, fighting back the invaders. During the scuffle, Ginny is nearly overwhelmed, but Irina steps in to save her. Suddenly, the ground shatters, and the debris fuses together, forming a massive stone golem that quickly evolves into a crystal one. Despite their combined efforts, their magic proves ineffective. Just as despair sets in, Weiss intervenes. Ordering the girls to stand back, he summons a powerful wind spell that lifts the creature into the air and shatters it into rubble. The girls are left in awe, and Irina expresses admiration for her father's power. But the moment is cut short as Jessica reappears behind Weiss and plunges her hand through his chest. Horrified, Irina runs to her wounded father. Ginny demands an explanation, and the woman calmly reveals that she is not Jessica at all, but Isekai'd, the frenzied king of dragons. She declares that the entire event was a setup to capture Irina. But as she reaches for her, Ginny retaliates with spells, yelling at Irina to escape. Protected by a magical barrier, Isekai'd wearily calls the emotional display pathetic, then casts a blast that sends Ginny sprawling. Just as she moves in to finish Ginny off, Irina intervenes. She pleads with Isekai'd to spare her friend, offering herself in exchange. Satisfied, Isekai'd knocks Irina unconscious, unfurls her wings, and takes flight with her captive, leaving Ginny battered and behind. Later, Weiss regains consciousness in the academy infirmary and quickly informs Isekai'd about Irina's abduction. Moments after, Gold arrives, revealing that Isekai'd once nearly brought the world to ruin thousands of years ago. He questions why Isekai'd has suddenly taken an interest in Irina, but Isekai'd cuts in, declaring that he'll do whatever it takes to bring her back. Moved by his resolve, Weiss offers his help and guides Isekai'd and Jack to the royal treasury. While Isekai'd searches inside, Jack pulls Weiss aside and asks whether Isekai'd already knows the truth about him and Irina. Weiss reflects on Irina's isolated upbringing, explaining that Isekai'd's friendship was the best thing to ever happen to her, which is why he hasn't found the strength to reveal the truth just yet. Meanwhile, in a dream, Irina relives the moment Isekai'd first became her friend. But this time, he asks about her hidden truth. When she shares it, he disintegrates into glittering dust. When she wakes up, she finds herself captive, and Isekai'd appears, announcing that it's time to begin the ritual. Irina asks what the ritual means. Isekai'd then unveils a grotesque creature beside her, the Orphan of Chaos, born from remnants of a demon Lord Isekai'd once vanquished in his past life as Varvatos. The monster requires Irina's blood to awaken its powers so that Elzard can summon the demon lord from his sealed realm. When Irina asks why she's going so far, Elzard confesses her ambition is to return the world to an age of endless war. Irina tells her that Ard will come to save her, and Elzard taunts her about the secrets she's hiding from him, and for once, Irina is silent. Just as the ritual preparations begin, Ard suits up to leave when Ginny insists on joining him. He refuses, saying the fight against Elzard is too dangerous, but Ginny opens up about her struggle to make friends despite all her training, and that Irina is the only friend she's ever had. Hearing that, Ard tells Ginny to wait for him with a nice, warm dinner. Then, he floats into the air, and he pauses and tells Ginny that she's his friend too before taking off. Back in the cave, the Orphan of Chaos looms over Irina, about to extract her blood as Elzard and her minions watch. Suddenly, the creature gets instantly incinerated by a searing light. All heads turn to see Ard, floating in the air. Landing without a word, Ard gives them one chance to say their goodbyes before unleashing a barrage of spells that obliterate the enemy forces. He rushes to free Irina, who breaks down in tears in his arms. Losing her composure, Elzard demands to know if Ard is aware of Irina's secret. She then reveals Irina's true name, Laval, and tells him she carries the blood of the evil gods. Back at the academy, Weiss and Jack discuss how both he and Irina have hidden their identities because of the hatred toward those linked to the evil gods, and how Queen Rosie is merely a puppet, while Weiss has been pulling the strings all along. He and Irina are the rightful royal family, but have lived in secrecy for their safety. After hearing the truth, Ard tells Elzard he doesn't care, as long as Irina is still the gentle girl who chose to be his friend, a true, radiant girl who lights up his life. Enraged, Elzard launches a lightning attack, but Ard deflects it without even forming a barrier. She fires spells all around in an attempt to collapse the ground beneath them, but when she attempts to descend, Ard retaliates with fire magic that crisps her up, but doesn't finish her. He then hurls a spear that knocks her off the cliff, and Irina thinks it's finally over, but Ard senses that Elzard is still alive. She reappears in her dragon form and lets out a devastating blast. Ard responds by releasing a magical shield just before the blast lands. While the barrier begins to fracture, he taps into an ancient technique, summoning Lydia's spirit and releasing a radiant golden beam. He transmutes her soul into a sword, and he ascends into the sky and clashes with Elzard. They exchange attacks, dodging and countering one another. When Elzard closes in for a final strike, Irina calls out, reaffirming her faith in Ard. That's all the encouragement he needs to unleash a transformation into his past self, Varvatos. Elzard hurls a volley of spells, but Ard redirects each one with terrifying ease. He reads her rage, recognizing it stems from deep abandonment, and calls her out. That only provokes her to cast another spell, but Ard begins conjuring an ultimate attack. As Elzard responds with her own spell, they collide in a colossal blast that lights up the heavens, an explosion so massive it dwarfs nuclear force. Ard's magic prevails, obliterating Elzard. He then reabsorbs Lydia's spirit and lands beside Irina to check on her. He asks if she's still okay being friends with him after what she saw, and she answers without hesitation that she will. Smiling, he casually mentions the food Ginny is preparing, and with that, they head back to the academy together. Somewhere deep in a dark dungeon, a young girl creates a glowing sword and cuts a giant minotaur in two, and with a victorious grin, she declares her eagerness to reunite with her older sister, Lydia. Having spent 3 long years training in the dungeon, she finally decides it's time to return. At the world above, she is shocked by how unrecognizable everything has become, and almost gets run over by carriages twice. She dashes into an alley, bewildered by how drastically the world has shifted in just a few short years. Suddenly, a masked figure steps from the shadows, addressing her as Lady Sylphie. He praises her for training in the dungeon for 3,000 years, and Sylphie blinks in confusion, questioning his words, and the man explains that time within the dungeon flows differently than in the outside world. As she walks alongside him, she asks who he is and how he knows so much about her. He claims they were comrades once, and she admits he does feel strangely familiar. He then reveals that they once served under Varvatos, alongside Lydia, and at the mention of that name, Sylphie urgently asks what became of their former lord. The masked man informs her that Varvatos is dead. Alarmed, she asks about Lydia and the others, fearing for their safety. The man leans in and reveals that while Varvatos perished, his soul has been reborn in the world under a new identity, and he now lives as an ordinary boy named Ard Meteor. He adds that if she wants answers about Lydia, she'll have to confront Ard herself. Meanwhile, at the academy, Ard and his friends meet with the headmaster. The elderly man announces that a grand school festival is being organized to mark the academy's 100th year, and this time, it will include both the famed battle tournament and a stage play. Upon hearing that, Irina expresses how much she's a fan of plays, and the headmaster requests their participation in the plays. From his robes, he pulls out a letter and hands it to Ard. It's a threat, demanding the cancellation of the festival, or else. Although such letters are received annually, this one is different, and Ard guesses aloud that it's because the parchment is made of human skin and that the sender is Lars Al Ghul. The headmaster admits he wants Ard in the play not just for entertainment, but because he believes Ard can face the looming threat, as the students wouldn't stand a chance against whatever is attacking them. Irina confidently promises they'll protect the school, but Ard warns them that it's too dangerous, and the girls insist they're capable of fighting by his side. Ard points out they're still short on help, but the headmaster reassures them that Olivia is conducting interviews to recruit assistants. Ard, however, suspects Olivia has her own motives for helping. During class, Ard hears someone shout his name, and Sylphie bursts through the doors calling out for him, and he realizes he's screwed. As she storms into the class, chaos follows as she's intimidating students in her search for him. Just then, Olivia calmly whacks her on the head with a notebook, and Olivia scolds her for her attitude, claiming that time in the dungeon must have shrunk her brain for the past 3,000 years. Ard nods at that statement, and Sylphie catches the gesture. Pointing at him, she accuses him of being the reincarnation of Varvatos. Ard freezes, stunned that she revealed his secret so carelessly in front of everyone. While Irina dismisses the idea as nonsense, Ginny thoughtfully says it might explain his power, and that it makes sense. Olivia presses Sylphie for more details, but Sylphie ignores her and demands answers from Ard, threatening violence if necessary, and starts roasting his pathetic existence, which annoys him. Irina suddenly slams her hands down, stepping up to defend Ard, offering to duel her in his place. As she speaks, Sylphie's expression shifts as she sees Lydia in Irina's voice and demeanor. She nervously asks for Irina's name, and Irina proudly introduces herself as Ard's one and only best friend. Sylphie, suddenly more shy than aggressive, says she wants to be friends with her, but unimpressed by her friend request, Irina rejects this little flat melon moron. Sylphie then challenges Ard to a duel to force him to come clean, but Olivia, seeing an opportunity, shifts the lesson to sword practice. Ard objects, but Sylphie rage baits him, saying he's a chicken with pebble-sized baby factories. Though he tries to remain composed, Olivia pushes him further, comparing this to how he handled Spencer. Realizing Olivia is trying to bait him into exposing himself, Ard reluctantly agrees to the duel. Facing Sylphie on the training grounds, Ard decides his best strategy is to lose deliberately so no one suspects he's the Demon Lord. From the sidelines, Irina cheers him on, encouraging him to defeat Sylphie faster than how fast he goons. Sylphie charges, but Ard swiftly parries her strikes and avoids her attacks. Realizing he's fighting too well, he adjusts his technique. Sylphie misreads this, thinking he's intimidated by her power.
Women.
Annoyed, Ard resolves to end it and lets her land a blow. But she counters, nearly stabbing him. He deflects the attack and shatters her sword, and Olivia announces his victory. In that moment, Ard realizes he may have gone too far. Sylphie refuses to accept defeat and, while tweaking, summons her sword again. Ard warns her to stop, but she unleashes a wave of lightning. He erects a barrier just in time, and the blast bounces toward a nearby building. Before she can strike again, he prepares defensive magic circles. Olivia interrupts, ordering her to stop. Sylphie freezes, noticing her classmates coughing on the ground. Olivia explains that the sword emits poisonous mana and that her reckless behavior nearly caused disaster. Sylphie fires back, comparing her actions to the devastation brought by Varvatos. Suddenly, Irina smacks her stupid head, saying excuses won't erase her wrongdoing. Sylphie crumples, apologizing through tears as she envisions Lydia standing before her. Irina comforts her gently, and Ard briefly sees Lydia in Irina's place. Days later, Ard gathers his classmates to plan for the upcoming festival. He informs them that their class will perform a play, but while they brainstorm ideas, a commotion breaks out in the hallway, and Sylphie is shouting. They rush out to find her arguing with 3 students. Irina demands to know what's happening, and Sylphie explains that they mocked her for being a commoner. One of the nobles claims they're just stating facts, and that noble students will always earn more praise and money during the festival. According to them, no commoner can compete with nobility. Fed up, Irina tells them off, calling them spoiled brats who gobble their rich dad's glizzies, and declares that they will defeat the nobles at the festival. Once the nobles walk away, Irina apologizes to Ard for losing her temper. He assures her he would have said the same, and shows her the other students who now look at them with newfound admiration. Back in the classroom, they resume their discussion, and decide that Ard should play the Demon Lord Bravados, Irene will be playing as Lydia, and Sylphie will be playing as the evil gods. Then, to gather money for their class, Ginny proposes that they run a maid cafe and unveils the costume designs. But Ard rejects the idea immediately, deeming it inappropriate. Ginny counters that her design is actually the most modest one she has, giving the boys some gooning material to imagine and making the girls get scared. She then reveals her real motive, which is to give the girls a chance to seduce Ard openly. The female students erupt in squeals at the idea, while the boys get jealous over Ard's big willy charm, and Ard is forced to give in. Sylphie objects, saying she doesn't support the plan. Ard clarifies that participation is voluntary, and hearing this, she concedes, saying she'll do it if it helps them win. But Ginny brushes her off, stating they never intended to include a flat chick in their cafe, which angers Sylphie. Up in a nearby tree outside the classroom, a small bird watches the scene unfold, and elsewhere, in a hidden location, the masked man who exposed Ard's identity observes everything through the bird's eyes. He chuckles darkly to himself, eagerly anticipating the moment Sylphie uncovers the full truth. On the day of the festival, Ard does his patrol duties while running around the stalls with Irina, sampling every edible item they can get their hands on. Their fun comes to a stop when an explosion rips through the air. They find Sylphie threatening an elderly man with her blade, and she accuses his eyes of marking him as a demon. Olivia steps in, and she vouches for the man, revealing he's a chef who once taught her how to make chips, and orders Sylphie to stand down. As the situation de-escalates, Irina notices a towering tree that has stood for generations. Ard explains that it's believed to house a mysterious item left behind by the kingdom's third monarch, the famed Sword King. Curious, Irina mentions even Weiss is clueless about its contents, and Ard tries to press Olivia for details, but she refuses to say more. Instead, she changes the subject, announcing her entry in the Sword King Battle Tournament to test her new skills. Ard advises her not to go too hard on the others, only to learn she's already signed him up too. He starts ranting about not wanting to flaunt his abilities, but Olivia threatens to expose him herself if he refuses, and begrudgingly, he agrees. Later, Ard arrives at the cafe Ginny had hyped up, only to witness Sylphie blasting a wall apart, sending a dude flying. She accuses the guy of grabbing her plots and nearly finishes him off before Ard intervenes, calming her down, fixing the wall, and preparing to deal with the situation himself. The moment he's done, a swarm of cafe girls tries to drag him inside with the promise of a creamy service. Ginny joins in, turning on the charm and flaunting her assets to lure him in. Once seated, the girls begin teasing him, asking whether he'd like them as his main course or dessert. Ard gets flustered and struggles to form coherent words, until Irina storms in, furious he's about to get his glizzy gobbled instead of patrolling. Ginny taunts Irina, claiming she couldn't match her appeal, and Irina tries to shoot back, but Ginny strikes where it hurts, triggering Irina's insecurities, and moments later, Irina shows up in a maid outfit, vowing to serve Ard exclusively. Ginny scoffs, claiming Irina can't handle Ard alone. The other girls jump in, fighting for Ard's attention until Sylphie declares she's joining the fray too. Suddenly, an announcement echoes across the festival that the Sword King tournament champion will receive a replica of the legendary sword. Sylphie signs up immediately. Irina follows, and Ginny, refusing to be outdone, joins in also. The next morning, the tournament kicks off. The announcer introduces the Academy's pride, Ard and Irina, and then moves on. Sylphie prepares herself to hear her name, only to be overshadowed by Olivia, the living legend whose assets are still fresh and creamy despite being thousands of years old. Sylphie cries at being overlooked, and Irina advises her to focus. As the matches begin, Irina and Sylphie steamroll their opponents. Olivia doesn't lift a finger, and her sheer aura sends her opponents fleeing. Ard follows with a clean victory, but starts plotting how to fake a loss in the finals to keep Olivia from growing suspicious. As the next round unfolds, everyone gathers to watch Ginny's match against a formidable upperclassman with the strength to rival Olivia. But Ginny starts losing, and Ard immediately notices her trembling legs, crippled by anxiety. He stands and shouts encouragement, helping her focus. With renewed determination, Ginny springs forward and lands a surprise blow, clinching her place in the finals. Soon after, a girl calls on Irina and Sylphie for help back at the cafe, leaving Ard behind. Ginny meets up with him outside and, seeing that it's only her with him, pulls out a flyer for a couple beauty contest. Ard insists he still needs to patrol the grounds, but she tempts him into doing both by suggesting he can guard the festival while attending the contest, and swayed by her charm, he agrees. At the contest, Ard spots a familiar face, Ginny's old bully, Spencer. As the first contestant appears on stage, Ard sneaks up and startles him. Ard realizes Spencer's using food as a way to cope, and when asked if he's there to mock Ginny again, Spencer says he came to support Lily, another competitor. As Ginny's turn comes, Spencer falls silent, visibly moved. Ard asks what's going on, and Spencer reflects on his past. Ginny, once his clumsy protector, used to struggle with even the simplest tasks. His training taught him to belittle her, and that's what he did. But seeing her transformation stirred something in him, and he thanks Ard for knocking sense into them both. Then, Ard and Ginny win the contest, and while she still feels insecure about herself, Ard assures her that she is beautiful and deserves the victory. Back at the cafe, the waiting patrons congratulate her, while Irina sulks over not having her own trophy. Then, the finals begin, and Ard squares off against Olivia before he can even enact his fake loss plan. He fights cautiously to maintain his disguise, but Olivia takes it up a notch, nearly landing a fatal blow. In response, Ard activates a defensive barrier, launching her sky high, violating the no magic rule and earning instant disqualification. The final showdown pits Irina against Ginny, who is itching to knock Irina off her pedestal. As their swords clash, their bickering about being Ard's only source of hanky-panky becomes increasingly explicit, making the audience cringe and laugh. In one last clash, Ginny drops, handing victory to Irina. As they exit the arena, Irina tells her that she's the rightful woman for Ard, and Ard arrives just in time to catch the end of their squabble, unaware that the masked man is quietly watching his every move. As the time for the stage play arrives, the students settle into their seats, buzzing with anticipation. Backstage, Irina battles a nasty case of stage fright, while Sylphie stares at her as if she's seeing Lydia in her place. Meanwhile, Ginny remains completely unfazed, which only adds to Irina's anxiety. Ard, in an effort to lift Irina's mood, tries to compliment her, but instead of boosting her spirits, she begins reciting her lines like a malfunctioning android. Eventually, the play kicks off, and Irina somehow manages to hold it together. When Ard makes his entrance during the performance, he's initially concerned about maintaining his energy levels, but the unfolding play begins to pull memories from deep within him, reminding him of the actual events it's based on. Back in those days, just after he finished briefing the group on their mission, Sylphie tried to insist on staying close to Lydia for added protection. Lydia scolded her once again for speaking out of turn. Then, without warning, the evil god made his grand entrance, mocking their efforts and urging them to enjoy what might be their final evening alive. That night, Sylphie crept over to Ard during his sleep and nervously asked whether the team saw her as the weak link. He clarified that Lydia's harshness was a way to protect her because she saw Sylphie as her successor. Still wanting to be included, Sylphie requested to join the battle, and Ard granted her permission, promising to take responsibility for her actions. The next morning, the evil god praised their effort in eliminating the bulk of his forces before raising his sword to end the fight. But before he could attack, he triggered a magic trap and was blown sky high, his remaining troops following him shortly after. Although injured, he survived, only for Lydia to charge in and land a devastating blow. Sylphie popped out excitedly, revealing that she was the mastermind behind the traps. As Alvardo tried to scold her for spoiling the fun, he and the rest of the troops also got caught in the mines. Ard began questioning whether she knew the trap placements and if she had left a safe path for them to go home, and she realized she hadn't. Frustrated, he gave her a light uppercut. On the way back, Sylphie wept about not being appreciated for her contributions, while Ard scolded her about using basic common sense. Lydia intervened, asking Ard to ease up, then sincerely thanked Sylphie for the help, cautioning her to be more careful next time. After the curtain closes, the cast waves to the crowd, but Sylphie's attention is pulled away by someone in the audience who resembles Lydia. She follows the look-alike, only to discover it was just a regular girl, and suddenly, the masked man appears. Later, Ard finds himself with Ginny, waiting for Sylphie to arrive for the final arena match. Ginny, reflecting on Sylphie's odd behavior during the play, suggests that she might be developing feelings for Ard and advises him to brace for a possible confession. Right then, Sylphie shows up, face devoid of emotion, and asks Ard to meet her later at the sacred tree. Then, the match begins, but it ends almost instantly. Sylphie disappears in a flash, then knocks Irina out cold with a precise chop to the neck. The crowd erupts, but Ard senses something is seriously wrong. That night, at the appointed tree, Sylphie waits. Ginny hides in the bushes with Irina, expecting a love confession and determined to spy. But when Ard arrives, Sylphie stuns everyone by declaring her intent to destroy him. She activates the tree's magic, channeling it into a sword that, contrary to belief, was never a replica. Drawing a second blade, she launches a furious assault. Ard flees into the sky, but she takes flight too, relentlessly chasing him while the girls below watch, stunned and confused by what's going on. Hours before, Sylphie had rejected the masked man's claim that Ard was the reincarnated demon lord Varvatos. But to turn her against Ard, the masked man used magic to manipulate her memories, making it appear that Ard had sent Lydia to her death. Consumed by rage, she intensifies her attacks and eventually manages to land a serious blow, knocking Ard out of the air. As she prepares to go in for the finishing blow, Irina attempts to intervene but gets swatted away. Ginny steps in with a blast to protect her, but gets launched to a wall. As Sylphie closes in on Irina, Ard reappears, now in his demon lord form, and demands that she stop. He tries to undo the brainwashing, but it fails. When she attacks again, he chooses to take the hit. But just as the strike comes down, Lydia's voice reaches her, and Sylphie freezes. Suddenly, the masked man seizes the opportunity and knocks Sylphie out cold. Ard confronts him, demanding answers. The masked man confesses he orchestrated it all to resurrect their master by sacrificing Irina, so he has to eliminate Ard first. With both swords in hand, he charges at Ard, but is the one who ends up bleeding and lost an arm, forcing him to retreat. Desperate, the masked man tries activating the sword's magic, but it turns on him and collapses. Ard seizes it, declaring it time for a lesson, and uses the sword to blow him up completely. As the dust settles, Ard reflects on how suspiciously easy the victory felt. Just then, Lydia's voice speaks once more, and her soul emerges from the sword to check on Sylphie, who slowly awakens. Lydia reassures her that Ard was never to blame, and promises to meet her again before gently returning to rest within the blade. Some days later, Ard finds himself in a carriage for a field trip, playing a card game with the girls. Ginny is already sulking after losing twice, and though Ard lifts her spirits, she draws an Elzard card that instantly puts her in another loss. He starts searching for a better card to cheer her up, but time suddenly halts, and everything freezes except for Ard, Ginny, and Irina. While trying to understand what's going on, the ground vanishes beneath them, and they plummet into a strange limbo. There, a short, pajama-wearing man emerges from a bed. When asked who he is, he calmly introduces himself as a god. Ard wastes no time asking what he wants. The god explains that time itself is governed by sacred laws designed to protect the world from destruction, and that someone is currently trying to violate them. Before disappearing, the god tasks Ard with stopping this mysterious figure and warps them to a new location, one Ard instantly recognizes in the distant past. Ginny and Irina ask him for details, so he points to the sky where there was once multiple moons, only 2 remain in the present. That confirms it that they've arrived in the age when he still lived as Varvatos, and spotting a familiar settlement in the distance, Ard concludes they must visit the reigning demon lord. The girls, seeing this as an opportunity, press themselves onto his arms. Suddenly, a girl's scream cuts through the air. They spot her fleeing from a death stinger. She stumbles, nearly meeting her end, but Ard intervenes, wiping the beast out with a flurry of magic while shielding her from harm. He notices a shift in his own strength just as a woman's voice echoes nearby, and he sees that it's Olivia carrying the injured girl. The girls almost call her by name, forgetting they shouldn't know her yet, and Olivia grows suspicious. Ard covers for them, saying they're just fans. Olivia tests his strength with a burst of aura that floors the girls, but Ard doesn't budge. Impressed, she tells him to bring them along. The next morning, at a villa overlooking the city, Ard and the girls meet Olivia again. She bluntly invites him to join their army, explaining the rise of Outer Ones, which are invaders spawning demons that threaten humanity. But thanks to the magic Varvatos left behind, humans can barely hold the line. But someone like Ard could turn the tide. He agrees, on one condition that the girls be allowed to fight alongside him, under a commander named Verda. Olivia objects as Verda's unit focuses on research and healing, but eventually agrees. Later, they reach Verda's research dome to join her team, but an explosion interrupts them, sending debris flying. A wild-looking blonde emerges from the blast and starts sizing up Ginny and Irina in a very inappropriate way, and she demands to know why they've come. To their surprise, the eccentric woman in front of them introduces herself as Verda herself, the legendary mage. Then, once the dome is repaired, she welcomes them inside and starts asking questions after Isekai'd explains their time-traveling circumstances. But she promises to help, as she's excited by the thickening plot. All of a sudden, Sylphie bursts in and chases Verda around, and everyone watches in disbelief until Lydia enters the room. The girls are struck by her divine beauty, but Isekai'd is shocked to see her after all this time. Then, Lydia grabs Verda and threatens her for not sending backup. But Verda quickly shifts the blame by suggesting she take Isekai'd and the girls. Lydia stares at them, and immediately focusing on Ginny's thick figure. Realizing Ginny's a succubus, Lydia pulls her in and starts playing with her, forcing Isekai'd to break it up and tell Lydia to act her age. Amused, Lydia challenges him to a fight, and he accepts. Outside, she wastes no time launching brutal punches, which Isekai'd blocks. She follows with a kick, and he dodges. She throws sand in his eyes, lands a crushing kick to his jaw, and buries a shot into his ribs that sends him crashing into stone. Isekai'd rises, and decides to get serious. He lunges forward with a punch, but she parries with her head and launches him with an uppercut. In midair, he retaliates with a kick that snaps her jaw and drops her. They continue exchanging heavy blows, both refusing to fall, until the sun begins to set and exhaustion takes over. Isekai'd forces himself to stand and walks away when Lydia asks if he'll fight beside her. Her words stir a memory inside Isekai'd of her softer side. Isekai'd turns and asks if she can arrange a meeting with Varvatos, and Lydia agrees, but only if he earns it by accomplishing something. Isekai'd agrees, and Lydia caresses his head before walking away, leaving him reminiscing their old duels. That night, Ginny relaxes in the bath at Lydia's villa when Lydia herself pops up, wanting to do the dirty with her. Meanwhile, Isekai'd is resting in his room when Latima drops by to deliver the news that Lydia has granted them permission to stay indefinitely. Once she leaves, he finds himself overwhelmed with guilt, still haunted by memories of what he did to Lydia in his past life. Days later, on the battlefield, Irina grows anxious about their safety, but Isekai'd reassures her, explaining they're positioned at the rear to offer support to the frontline troops. As he studies the formation, it hits him that they're battling for control over the plain of Aurelia, which demons have seized. They begin the attack, and Irina and Ginny provide backup from the rear until an explosion lights up the field, followed by lightning that decimates a group of soldiers. The sudden attack is led by Commander Bulgan, who continues to electrify the remaining forces. Lydia and Sylphie's battalion manages to crush the demon troops and prepares to storm the enemy castle, but Lydia grows uneasy, realizing that something feels off. Her suspicion is confirmed when a cadet rushes in to report chaos erupting at the rear and Bulgan is there. Meanwhile, Bulgan approaches Isekai'd and the girls, ready to strike, but Isekai'd triggers a magical landmine, turning Bulgan into roast pork. Lydia and Sylphie arrive just in time to find Bulgan already defeated. Isekai'd assumes he was just another weak bum, but Lydia reveals he was the commander that they have been wanting to take down. Impressed, she says it's finally time for Isekai'd to meet Varvatos. The next day, they ride in carriages toward the castle, and the girls are buzzing with excitement. Inside, they're still marveling at everything, while Sylphie bluntly insists that Lydia's villa is far more impressive. Just as Isekai'd starts questioning how suspiciously easy it is to meet Varvatos, a giant fireball comes hurtling toward them. Isekai'd instantly creates a barrier to shield everyone. From the smoke, Alvardo emerges, praising Isekai'd's power and challenging him, and Lydia steps in to answer his challenge. But he expresses that his interest is in Isekai'd, not Lydia. Before tensions escalate, a powerful divine aura floods the room, and Varvatos enters. His mere presence causes Ginny to faint. He orders Alvardo to back down, threatening to annihilate him if he doesn't. Alvardo bows out, leaving them alone. After glancing at Irina and Ginny, who appear stunned, Varvatos invites them to follow him into the throne room. Once seated, his royal aides flock to serve him, but he waves them away. Irina and Ginny start whispering about how handsome the Demon Lord looks, but being in the past, Varvatos questions being called the Demon Lord. Isekai'd covers it up and explains that it's a modern term used to refer to him, but Varvatos admits he's never heard of such a title, and instead speaks of another being known as the Demon Lord. The realization hits Isekai'd that Varvatos hasn't yet become the Demon Lord in this time period. Back at Verda's dome, the group debates how this timeline changed so drastically, and Verda suggests that history may have already turned into alternate realities. Remembering the cryptic warning from the god they met earlier, Isekai'd begins to suspect that this other demon lord Varvatos mentioned could be the very threat they were warned about. The girls get hopeful, thinking all they have to do is defeat the current demon lord to return home. But Verda crushes that hope, explaining that the current demon lord is immensely powerful, so much so that even Varvatos struggled against him and managed to rise into power quickly. They consider asking Varvatos for help, but Isekai'd knows such a favor won't come easy. He suggests they prove themselves first by taking down more enemies. At that moment, Lydia storms in, summoning Isekai'd for a mission, which he accepts without hesitation. Later, he's walking through a dense forest with her, Sylphie, and a small team for their next objective. Lydia mentions leaving the girls behind was wise as their target is Mavilas, and the name itself sends a chill through Isekai'd. When Sylphie asks if he knows him, he plays dumb, so she explains Mavilas is a top-ranking archdemon. However, Isekai'd remembers all too well as Mavilas played a part in the reason Isekai'd had to end Lydia's life. But when Lydia checks in on him, he says nothing. Upon reaching the demon's fortress, Sylphie and the squad prepare to confront the skeletal army. Isekai'd, however, unleashes a powerful wind spell that obliterates them in seconds. Lydia checks in on him once more before they prepare to enter, but then, the entire castle erupts in flames. Inside, they discover the remains of demons and soldiers alike burning to ash. Suddenly, Mavilas' severed head rolls onto the floor. A figure in imposing armor steps out, claiming to be the current demon lord, and with a calm threat, he declares war on Varvatos and vanishes. The following day, Isekai'd and his companions attend a meeting with the Council of Seven alongside Varvatos. From the start, the council isn't pleased about Isekai'd and the girls being there, but Varvatos wastes no time and recounts Isekai'd's recent triumphs before laying out the mission of defeating the demon lord and dismantle his castle, all within a single day. The announcement stirs the room. A council member questions whether Varvatos plans to send in the 4 heavenly kings. Varvatos confirms that he will, and that he'll be joining the fight as well. Alvardo and Lydia are visibly thrilled at the idea of seeing him in action again, but the rest of the council strongly objects. They argue and they protest, but Varvatos remains firm. Then Isekai'd raises a critical concern whether Varvatos have a plan to neutralize the demon lord's immortality, but he tells him it's a secret. After the meeting, Isekai'd finds Latima and asks about Lydia. She explains that Lydia went to brief the troops under her command. Once she's gone, Isekai'd sits down, trying to mentally map the growing number of changes diverging from the historical timeline, and that's when the demon lord suddenly appears, directly confronting him. He says something ominous, hinting that Lydia must suffer again for the timeline to be restored. Isekai'd pretends not to understand, but the demon lord sees through it and tells him to stop pretending, as they're the same person. Isekai'd doesn't get it until the demon lord removes his helmet, revealing that he's another version of him, one who led a far more tragic life. He was once Varvatos, too, but unlike Isekai'd, he lost everything he cared about. To cope, he abandoned his name and tried to escape his pain. He takes a seat and begins explaining that just like Isekai'd, he encountered the same small god who offered him a chance to return to the past, and his mission was to save Lydia. He knows Isekai'd wants that too, and proposes they work together to succeed. Isekai'd wonders if Varvatos knows, and the demon lord scoffs, as he despises Varvatos and blames him for Lydia's demise. Isekai'd is confused as why he's fighting Varvatos if saving Lydia is the goal, and the demon lord reveals the truth that the god made destroying Varvatos and the world his divine purpose. Isekai'd thinks hard to how does mass destruction help Lydia, and the demon lord steps closer and reminds him how Lydia died in the past. Isekai'd flashes back to the final battle, a desperate gamble involving Lydia that ended in failure. Enraged, the demon lord grabs him and asks why Isekai'd didn't take the risk himself. He then recounts how Lydia became a threat and had to be eliminated, something that broke him so deeply he took his own life to get reincarnated. But he was reborn as Isekai'd, only to suffer again. Now, he wants to become the ultimate threat, forcing Lydia to end him to ensure she survives. He offers the partnership once more, and Isekai'd thinks of the girls, his allies, his friends. Just as he's about to respond, Lydia's voice inside him interrupts. He hesitates, and the demon lord understands, so he gives him 3 days to decide, then disappears. Shortly after, Latima escorts Isekai'd to breakfast. On the way, he probes her loyalty to Lydia, and without hesitation, she says she'd give her life for her. At the table, Lydia scolds Isekai'd for being late. Sylphie demands more food, prompting Irina to point out how much she eats. Sylphie defends herself, claiming that her tiny plots need fuel. As Isekai'd sits, lost in thought, Ginny notices. She asks if he's okay, and he suddenly remembers when she questioned if he was the demon back at the academy. Then Lydia slams him with her melons and declares they'll be spending the day together. He follows her around town as she tests everything she can and rizzes up every attractive woman in sight. When she tries to get him in a three-way action, it spirals into an argument, then escalates into a fistfight, and the crowd watches as they both collapse in exhaustion. Lying there, Lydia asks if fighting helped clear his mind. Surprised she noticed, Isekai'd asks what she'd do if forced to make a great sacrifice. She changes the subject and asks if he still remembers flight magic before taking him to a barren wasteland, once a thriving town. Ghosts appear, accusing her of destroying their lives. After they vanish, Lydia confesses that the city was a demon stronghold long ago that she'd been ordered to reclaim and took the castle. Night after night, demons attacked, and to protect her troops, she slaughtered them all, but while she won, the guilt remains. Isekai'd tries to reassure her that they were enemies, but Lydia insists that the line between them and humans isn't so clear. She reveals her plan that she intends to die, but on her own terms. She dreams of a peaceful world, one safe from threats, and wants Isekai'd to stop trying to save her. She doesn't want a dramatic end, only an average one that might atone for her sins. When they return to the villa, she asks Latimer to make a meal. The other girls immediately interrogate her about where they'd gone. Lydia gives Ginny and Irina hairpins as an apology and smacks Sylphie to silence her, then invites Isekai'd to join her for a drink. 3 days pass, and the battle starts. Verda unleashes her mechanical titan, tearing through demon forces. Olivia and her unit are ruthless, cutting down enemy after enemy. Isekai'd shields troops from fire-breathing dragons. Alvardo, growing bored, casts wild magic circles, electrocuting anything nearby, until Varvatos turns the magic into black holes that devour the dragons. Elsewhere, Sylphie and Lydia battle through the enemy ranks, wondering where Isekai'd vanished to. Meanwhile, he's with the Demon Lord again, giving his answer, and recalling Lydia's words, he declines the offer. Without hesitation, the Demon Lord attacks, and Isekai'd dodges a barrage of blasts and counters, but his spell barely scratches the armor. The Demon Lord uses a magic mine, and while Isekai'd leaps out, he's surrounded by magic circles, but he neutralizes them with ease. He retaliates by trapping the Demon Lord in a gravity field, crushing him with escalating force, but the Demon Lord shatters it. They both pause, recognizing their equal strength. Then the Demon Lord smiles, and he says that because he knows it will be a stalemate between them, he chose the day of the battle to ask for his answer. At the villa, Irina and Ginny grow tired of constantly being excluded from the action. Their frustration builds until Ginny, in an attempt to lighten the mood, shifts the topic, leading to a heated debate about Isekai'd and his roster of baby mamas. Their argument disappears when Latimer appears with urgent news that Isekai'd has entrusted them with a critical task. As the trio sprints through the woods, Latimer explains that Isekai'd has uncovered the secret behind the Demon Lord's immortality and needs them to infiltrate the castle. Then, she reveals the truth that the Demon Lord is using a soul separation technique, hiding his soul in an external vessel, and by keeping it separate, he ensures that his physical body can be destroyed without consequence. Isekai'd believes the vessel is hidden within the castle, and he wants them to destroy it, while the ongoing battle is merely a diversion to allow them access through a concealed path. Just then, Latimer senses danger and shoves them aside, barely dodging an attack. She's wounded but insists they go on ahead, while she'll hold off the ambush. Meanwhile, the battlefield rages. Verda's towering mech is obliterating enemy lines, and when demons attack from above, she counters with twin plasma cannons, blasting them out of the sky. Alvardo and Olivia thrive in the chaos, tearing through the demon horde with ease. Sylphie, however, searches desperately for Lydia, who has mysteriously vanished mid-battle. By the time Irina and Ginny arrive at the soul vessel's location, they prepare to destroy it, only to be caught in a trap. They're suddenly restrained on crosses, and Latimer, standing before them, reveals her betrayal and that the mission was a fake. Through a magical projection, Isekai'd watches in disbelief as the Demon Lord greets him, pretending to be pleased to see the girls again. He offers Isekai'd a choice to join him, so the girls will be spared. When Isekai'd questions the alternative, the Demon Lord claims he'd let the girls go, framing the offer as a convenient excuse for Isekai'd to defect. Isekai'd refuses, and the Demon Lord presses on, reminding him of their shared grief over Lydia's death and vowing to burn the world down to bring her back. He warns that Varvatos' army will destroy the castle, putting the girls in danger, and insists that siding with him is Isekai'd's only option. Back in the castle, Irina demands answers from Latimer. But the traitor coldly states that the girls were nothing more than pawns, tools to manipulate Ard. Ginny urges Irina to stop trying to reason with her and focus on escaping. Latimer mocks them, reminding them that their magic has been sealed. But the girls have one last ace in the form of Ard's mana control training. Together, they unleash their power and shatter the restraints. Latimer responds by summoning a horde of demons to stop them. But before they clash, Lydia bursts in and effortlessly wipes out the threat. She reveals that the hairpins she gave the girls were actually trackers and says she's been watching over them. She confronts Latimer, urging her to stop this madness, but Latimer insists she's trying to save Lydia. More demons emerge, and Lydia defeats them with ease, knocks Latimer out with a punch to the gut, and then destroys the soul vessel. Ard, watching it all unfold, tells the Demon Lord it's over. But the Demon Lord refuses to concede and tries once more to sway Ard, insisting his desire to save Lydia was born from love, not guilt. However, Ard isn't convinced, and he calls the Demon Lord a cowardly wimp who only wants redemption for abandoning Lydia in the past. Their ideologies clash, and both unleash their true power and launch into a violent duel. As their blows collide, the Demon Lord recalls his final argument with Lydia during his time as Varvatos. That day, she had raged against the peace treaty with the demons, demanding their total destruction. Varvatos had defended the treaty, claiming it was humanity's only chance, and Lydia refused to compromise. Their argument escalated, ending with her storming off to fight alone in what became her final battle. The memory fills the Demon Lord with fury, and he overwhelms Ard in a brutal charge. As he prepares to deliver a fatal blow, Lydia's spirit intervenes, holding him back just long enough for Ard to strike back with a powerful attack. Wounded and collapsing, the Demon Lord pleads with Ard one final time, confessing that only after Lydia's death did he realize he truly loved her. But Ard shows no sympathy, and with cold resolve, he drives his sword into the Demon Lord's heart, ending it all. In the aftermath, Ard and the girls begins to fade. Lydia appears before them and asks if her sacrifice mattered, and they reassure her that it meant everything as it achieved the peace Lydia wanted. She smiles, gives them a farewell hug, and sends a message for Ard. Back on the battlefield, Varvatos feels a sudden shift in the flow of magic. A soldier arrives to confirm the Demon Lord's defeat, and as the soldiers cheer, Varvatos halts their pursuit of the remaining demons and announces their victory. As Ard drifts through the void, he meets the tiny, mysterious god once more. Ard asks for his identity, but the figure simply offers cryptic reassurance that they are allies, and that's all he needs to know. Suddenly, Ard wakes up, and he's back in the carriage. Sylphie scolds them for sleeping the whole way, but Ard notices something that the girls are still wearing the hairpins. The moment feels surreal, and after they disembark, Irina approaches and delivers Lydia's final message to him that she'll always be his best friend. Then she runs off to catch up with Ginny. As Ard watches them go, he feels a gentle push, and he sees Lydia's spirit one last time, smiling and pointing toward the girls before dissolving into the stars. If you watch this anime recap until the end, comment down Demon Lord Reborn. If you like anime recaps like this, watch this video.